Have you ever watched a family on TV for so long that they started to feel like your own? Like you saw the kids grow up, go through heartbreaks, school milestones, and suddenly one season, they're just gone, like completely missing. No explanation, no appearances, just gone. That's what's happening right now on Sister Wives, and honestly, it's raising some serious questions. Hey everyone, I'm Helena, and welcome back to my channel, the place where we dig into what's really going on behind the scenes of the Brown family. If you're new here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you never miss an update. And I really want to hear your thoughts on this. So don't forget to drop a comment below. I read all of them, so let's talk about something that's been bothering a lot of us this season. Where are the Brown kids? Gwendlyn Logan Hunter. Aspen, barely even a mention. Some of them pop in for a brief scene or two, usually around something tragic like Garrison's heartbreaking death, but most of them they've just vanished. Meanwhile, Robin's kids are front and center, almost as if they've replaced the rest of the family. It's not just that they're not filming anymore, it's why they've stopped, and once you start connecting the dots, the story gets pretty hard to stomach. We're not just talking about kids stepping away from the spotlight. We're talking about children who were featured on national television for years, sometimes since they were toddlers, who were never paid, never protected, and had little to no say in how their lives were turned into content. And the person at the center of this issue, Kody Brown, the patriarch, the one with the contracts, the one who benefited the most from having his kids on screen, but never gave them anything in return. Not even basic respect or compensation. So, what really happened here? Why are so many of the kids keeping their distance now? And what are the emotional and legal consequences of growing up in a family where your life is a storyline, but your well-being is an afterthought? It's one of those things you don't fully notice until someone points it out, and then you can't unsee it. This season on Sister Wives, something feels different off. Not just the usual tension between the adults or the slow collapse of Kody's family empire. It's who's not there. That really speaks volumes. Gwendlyn Brown, gone Aspen. Logan Hunter, nowhere to be found. And we're not just talking about background appearances, these are Kody's kids too, and yet they've been edited out of the show's present, like they never existed. No confessionals, no family events, no updates, nothing. The few children we have seen this season, McKelty, Madison, Gabriel, Savannah, they've been on screen just briefly, mostly, when the show had no choice but to acknowledge something big, like the loss of Garrison. It's almost like their presence is treated as a plot device rather than actual people. The audience has grown to care about over the years, and then there's the contrast, while the rest of Kody's older children have clearly distanced themselves. Guess who's still front and center? Robin's kids, Aurora, Brianna, Dayton. They are the ones getting all the camera time now, the talking heads, the family moments, the emotional segments. It's become glaringly obvious that the show is operating inside a new bubble, and it's Kody, Robin, and their kids that are inside it now. This shift isn't subtle, and it's not random either. If you go back even just a few seasons, the dynamic was different. The show made an effort to involve all of the kids, even if just to check in or give a small window into their adult lives. But this season, that effort is gone. The silence around the older kids isn't just absence. It feels intentional. And let's be real here, this isn't a small family. This is a family with 18 kids. So why does it now feel like the show only revolves around 5 or 6 of them? The imbalance raises some pretty serious questions. Why are the kids, from Christine, Janelle, and Mary's sides, pulling away? Why does it seem like the only kids still on camera are the ones being raised by the one wife? Kody never had a falling out with Robin. And most importantly, what does that say about how these kids were treated off camera? It tells us something about loyalty, about trust, and about how fractured this family has become. Not just among the wives, but between Kody and his own children, because when more than half your kids are missing from a show that's supposed to be about family, maybe it's not a show about family anymore. Maybe it's a show about control and the ones who are missing. They might be the only ones who saw it clearly now. Let's get into something that really grinds my gears. When it comes to the Brown family, it's not just about who's on screen and who's missing. It's about how these kids were treated from the start. This whole reality TV business. We have to talk about the money, the contracts, the compensation, or should I say, the lack of compensation. It's insane that this has to be said. But the truth is, the Brown kids were on TV for years without a dime in their pockets. Let's start with something most people don't even know. TLC doesn't sign contracts with the kids. Nope. They sign contracts with the parents. That's right. TLC makes the deals with Kody Robin, Janelle, Christine, and Mary. And here's the kicker: the kids. They get nothing. No formal contracts, no compensation, no protections whatsoever. And here is where things really get complicated. Christine Brown, in one of the rare moments of clarity and humanity in this whole saga, made the decision to pay her kids for their work on the show. She understood that these kids weren't just background noise. They were living their lives in front of cameras, and that should come with respect. But then Kody refused, flat out said, no payments for his kids, even though they were shown on every episode of the show for years. It's a messed up system, right? Imagine you're a kid, maybe 8, 9, 10 years old, being filmed constantly. Your life on full display for the world to see, but when the checks come in, your parents are the ones cashing them. Not you, not the kids who were the actual stars of the show's real moments. Think about it. What other job could a kid have where they worked for years without pay? You think of child actors and the whole system is different. They sign contracts, they get paid according to strict child labor laws. They're protected by unions like SAG-AFA, and their compensation is structured and regulated. They don't have to be exploited for years without any kind of agreement. But in reality TV, it's a different world. The rules are looser. There are no unions looking out for the kids, and there are no child labor laws that can stop the production from exploiting their labor as long as they're legally the child of the parent involved. They can be filmed, manipulated, and made into content without anyone batting an eye. And that's what happened with the Browns. They filmed their lives, these kids' lives, for seasons on end, from the time they were toddlers to young adults. They were filmed constantly. Their childhoods were on display. Their most intimate moments aired for everyone to watch, whether it was Gwendlyn's struggles or the awkward, heartbreaking moments of Logan and Madison, as they tried to balance their family's drama with their own lives. The cameras never stopped rolling yet when it came time to get compensated for that exposure, for that labor. Nothing. No paycheck. How does that even make sense? Let's break this down a little further. Gwendlyn, for example. She's been on the show since she was just a little girl. We've watched her grow up, see her opinions, her relationships with her siblings and her father. But did she see a penny of the millions TLC rakes in every season? Nope. She was just a prop, a pawn in a game that made the Browns a fortune while she got nothing in return. And it's not just Gwendlyn. The same thing happened to all of them. Logan, Hunter, Aspen. All of them had their lives filmed for the world to see, and yet they were never compensated for their time or energy. All they got was their name in the credits and maybe a little recognition from the fans. But when it comes to cashing in, that was never for them. So when the older kids pull back, when they stop participating in the show, is it any wonder you can only be used so much before you start to realize the situation you're in, and when you realize that the show is profiting off your life, your trauma and your struggles, and you're getting nothing in return? It's no surprise that they want out. TLC has a long history of treating its stars, especially minors, like disposable content. And the reality is, those kids who were on TV for years were never seen as real people with real lives. They were just a commodity for the network to sell. But let's take a minute to think about what would have happened if the Brown kids had been treated like real child stars, if they had been given contracts, if they had been compensated, if their labor had been acknowledged. Would they have stayed in the show longer? Would the family dynamic have shifted differently? If there had been more legal protections in place, that's the crux of it. It's about respect. It's about value. And for those kids, they got neither, not from TLC, not from Kody, not from the system that was supposed to be taking care of them. And when you see how they were treated, being used for content, but getting none of the rewards, it's no wonder they wanted to step away. Kody and Robin may have gotten the glory, but the kids got the short end of the stick. And that's something we can't ignore. Now, let's zoom in on one of the most heartbreaking yet eye-opening stories from the Brown kids' Gwendlyn. If you've been following her journey, you'll know that she was one of the most outspoken and emotionally aware members of the family. But her story, her shift from excitement to discomfort, is one of the clearest examples of how the whole reality TV machine chewed her up and spit her out. In an eye-opening interview with Teen Vogue, Gwendlyn opened up about what it was like being on Sister Wives as a child. And honestly, hearing her story puts everything into perspective. When she was younger, she was excited about being on TV. She loved the idea of people recognizing her, the sense of belonging that came with the cameras. It felt like she was a part of something big, something special. She even admitted that the initial thrill of fame gave her a sense of validation. Who wouldn't feel that way as a kid? But as Gwendlyn got older, that joy quickly turned into something else. The fame she once reveled in became a source of discomfort, and more importantly, a loss of autonomy. She revealed how as she grew older, she started to understand the gravity of what it meant to be constantly on display. Every moment of her life was being filmed, and it started to feel less like family and more like a show for everyone else. One of the most telling parts of her interview was when she talked about how her privacy was invaded. Can you imagine being a teenager struggling with your own identity, your own growing pains, and then having your entire personal life blasted out for the world to see? Gwendlyn had no choice but to be part of the narrative, and she quickly realized that her every word, every action was being analyzed, dissected, and turned into content. She explained how difficult it was to have zero privacy. There's something incredibly vulnerable about growing up in front of an audience, especially when you're being filmed for a show that's about your family's drama. She wasn't just living her own life, she was living it for the world to see. And let's be real. When you're a teenager, that's a tough pill to swallow. You're trying to figure out who you are, and there's no space to do that in peace when you know the cameras are rolling. But the moment that truly opened my eyes and honestly broke my heart for Gwendlyn was when she recalled the experience of being asked to come out on camera. Yep, you heard that right. Come out on camera for the world to see. And here's the kicker. She wasn't even given the option to say no. She was expected to perform her emotions, her journey for the cameras without her consent. This is where it gets dark. Imagine being in a situation where something that deeply affects your personal life, the way you express yourself, the way you identify, is treated like another scene in a show. No privacy, no respect. Just a spectacle, Gwendlyn was expected to put her personal growth and emotional journey on display for the network's ratings, with no regard for her comfort or her mental well-being. This moment was, in my opinion, a huge wake-up call for anyone who believes reality TV is just real life. It's not. It's a production, and in this case, the production culture is exploitative to the core. Let's break this down. Gwendlyn was forced to perform on camera, and in doing so, she lost any semblance of autonomy over her own life. Her coming out moment, which should have been a deeply personal, intimate experience, was turned into a public spectacle one that was entirely controlled by the producers and the family. She wasn't asked for her consent. It wasn't about her journey. It was about the show's narrative, and that's what made it so damaging. Her discomfort with this treatment was clear in her interview. Gwend wasn't naive. She saw it for what it was. She knew that her emotions, her struggles, and her personal milestones were being commodified for an audience. And when you're a teenager, when you're just trying to figure out who you are, that's a lot to handle. It's exhausting, it's invasive, and most of all, it's wrong. Gwendolyn's experience shines a harsh light on the production culture that runs reality TV shows like Sister Wives. It's not about telling a genuine story. It's about controlling the narrative and exploiting vulnerable moments for ratings. Gwendolyn should have been allowed to come to terms with her identity in a safe space without the pressure of cameras and producers looming over her. Instead, she was thrust into a world where her personal milestones became just another part of the show's drama. That's the dark side of reality TV. And Gwen's story is a painful reminder that sometimes the people behind the cameras don't care about the real-life consequences. They care about the content. It's a game for them, but for the kids, it's real life. And that's something Gwendolyn learned the hard way. Her journey from excitement to discomfort isn't just a personal one. It's a story that resonates with every child, star who's ever had their privacy stripped away for the sake of a paycheck. It's heartbreaking to think about, and it's something we need to keep in mind when we watch these shows and cheer on these families, because behind every camera is a real person. Someone who deserves their privacy, their autonomy, and their respect. All right, let's zoom out for a second and look at the bigger picture, because this is where things start to get really disturbing. If you've ever wondered why shows like Sister Wives feel so exploitative, it's not just the production that's at fault. No, it's also the network TLC. And unfortunately, the parents themselves specifically. Kody Brown. One thing we need to talk about is TLC's pattern of filming in states with lax labor laws. Why does this matter? Well, it's because TLC, like many other reality TV networks, knows how to skirt around child labor laws. Reality TV isn't like traditional scripted television, where child actors are protected by unions and strict regulations. So reality TV is different. It's a gray area. There are fewer protections in place for kids, and TLC has long capitalized on this. They film in places like Utah and Nevada states, where child labor laws aren't as strict when it comes to reality television. This is no coincidence. By filming in these states, they can get away with more, pushing the boundaries of what's acceptable in terms of child exploitation. But it's not just Sister Wives, where we've seen this behavior. TLC has a long history of exploiting kids in these types of shows. Remember the Gosselin kids from John and Kate Plus 8, or the Duggar kids from 19 Kids and Counting. The list goes on. All of these shows involve children whose lives were put on display for profit. And while they were technically participating in these shows voluntarily, there's a huge difference between consent as a child and consent as an adult. Children don't always have the agency to say, "No, I don't want to be filmed." And the parents, well, they often cash in on that lack of agency. And let's talk about Kody Brown for a second. He has on multiple occasions been accused of pushing his kids into certain paths to avoid paying for their future expenses. There's been talk, especially among some of the older kids, that Kody pressured them into joining the military as a way to bypass paying for college. Now, while joining the military is an admirable choice for many, the idea that Kody might have pushed his kids into this decision because it saved him money on their education is deeply troubling. These kids weren't given the same freedom of choice they were encouraged to make, life-altering decisions like joining the military, all because it would cost less for Kody. Now, let's talk about the so-called college and vehicle funds. That's something that Kody has claimed he's provided for his children, that he has this set-aside money for their college and vehicles. But the reality, as we've seen time and time again, is much different. Sure, Kody talks a good game about wanting to provide for his kids, but let's look at the actions or lack thereof. None of the Brown kids have publicly acknowledged receiving significant funds for college. They had to fend for themselves. It's the classic case of talking the talk but not walking the walk. And when you're a kid growing up in this kind of environment with promises made but never fulfilled, It can leave a lasting emotional scar. And here's where the emotional toll comes in. Imagine being a child, not only filmed for years, but also used as a pawn in your own family's narrative. This isn't just about not getting paid for your time and effort. This is about being emotionally used. It's about being treated like content, not a person. Your experiences, your struggles, your personal journey, all of it is twisted into a story for the family's benefit and for the network's profit. That's the real emotional damage of being exploited by your own parent for content. Let's be honest, what kind of message does that send to the kids? Their worth is tied to how much drama or emotion they can bring to the screen. It's a constant reminder that they are not just children. They are assets. Their emotional well-being, their privacy, their autonomy. None of that matters in the face of ratings and sponsorship deals. And the worst part, this all comes from the very people who are supposed to love and protect them. Kody and his wives. It's not just that the kids weren't compensated. They were used in ways that affected their sense of self-worth. They were put into situations that caused pain, distress, and long-term emotional damage. And for what? So TLC can get their views, and so Kody can maintain his public image as the patriarch of a large, happy family. In the end, it's clear that the system in place from TLC to the Brown family itself has prioritized their profit over the well-being of the kids. And the worst part is that no one seems to care about the emotional wreckage left in the wake of that exploitation. So, when we step back and look at everything we've discussed today, what do we really see? We see a family that's been torn apart by the very system that was supposed to keep them together. We see children who've had their childhood stolen, their privacy trampled, and their safety compromised for the sake of reality. TV drama. What's truly heartbreaking is that these kids who should have been focused on growing up, making mistakes, finding their own paths, have instead been turned into commodities for the camera. Their emotional well-being was the last thing TLC or Kody cared about, and we're left with the fallout. Broken relationships, lost trust, and a whole lot of emotional damage. But let's not forget the brave ones, the Gwendlyns of the world who are speaking out. Gwendlyn especially has been courageous in sharing her experiences, letting the world know what it really felt like to grow up in front of the cameras. It's not easy to speak the truth, especially when you know it might upset your family and shake the foundation of everything you've been taught to believe, but she's doing it, and we owe her our respect for that. So what does all of this mean for us as viewers? Well, it's time to think twice. Reality TV, especially shows like Sister Wives, isn't just entertainment. It's real lives, real people, and real consequences. The next time you watch, ask yourself, what am I really watching, and what price has this family paid for my entertainment? I want to hear from you, your thoughts, your feelings. Do you think these kids have been mistreated, or are we just too quick to judge? Leave me a comment below. Hit that subscribe button and stick around because we've got more truth coming your way, and I'll see you soon.